Pursuant to Standing Order 84A subsection 1, the bill stands committed to the Select Standing Committee on Private Bills and Private Members' Bills. Honourable members, according to the order paper, we will look to the member next on the list of precedents to move their item of business. Recognizing the member for Burnaby East.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move motion 38, standing in my name on the order paper, that this House condemns the intolerant views of the Association for Reformed Political Action, also known as ARPA, including its harmful discrimination against transgender people, its belief that homosexuality is immoral, and its explicit policy goal of restricting abortion access in British Columbia. Madam Chair, British Columbia is a place where we respect rights equally, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation, and where we respect a woman's right to make their own reproductive choices. In fact, the issue of a woman's right to choose was settled long ago, so I thought, and that right universally respected in BC. In fact, since 2005, this country has enshrined protections for gender identity and expression in our human rights laws. But because of the actions of the BC Conservative Caucus, this progress must be defended. And that's why members of the public and members of this House, including myself, were shocked when the member for Chilliwack North brought an organization to this building actively promoting that, quote, homosexuality is immoral and morally wrong. That's from ARPA's own executive director, from their own material that they brought to the legislature. They also believe that, quote, homosexuality and transgenderism are disordered. They are an organization that wants to end the federal ban on the documented harmful and sinister practice of conversion therapy. And they are actively lobbying MLAs in this building to restrict abortion access for women. I find it astounding, shocking, and hurtful that these issues are being brought back into this building by the opposition and are even a matter of debate. The member for Chilliwack North, who hosted the organization in April, had many of her colleagues join her in welcoming ARPA to the legislature, including the leader of the opposition. At the event, the member said, quote, what ARPA has done is given a voice to the ills of society that are so harmful to many. Many of their stances align with our common sense approach as the Conservative Party of BC, end quote. Is ending a woman's right to choose common sense? Is putting queer kids in school at risk common sense? And dictating who someone can love common sense? While the member for Chilliwack North and some in the opposition are trying to bring these hateful and harmful issues back, I know there are those that do not share their views. That's why I believe this motion is so important to bring forward. These hateful views have been brought back for debate by the opposition, and so the question must be asked. Do the individual members condemn harmful discrimination against transgender people and the belief that homosexuality is immoral? Does each member condemn the policy goal of stopping a woman from making their own reproductive choices? Madam Chair, it is shocking that this is even coming back for debate. Let me be absolutely clear. I support my friends, my family, and community, no matter who they love. That's their choice, and I support all the members of the trans community. And I can't believe in this day and age, I have to say, I respect a woman's right to choose and put that on the record. But the member for Chilliwack North and some of her colleagues are trying to bring that debate back too. These issues shouldn't be a matter of opinion. Human rights should not be up for debate. I met a young woman who told me she was out with her girlfriend for a night out on the town, of course minding her own business, and she got yelled at and intimidated by a group of people on the street. Why? Because she was holding her partner's hand. That meant that their safety was at risk. That was heartbreaking to hear, but sadly, stories like this happen all the time. For some reason, some people just can't let others live the way that they want. And that's who ARPA is, and the people who support them are. They're the harassers in that story. The things that they stand for are about not letting people be who they are, not letting them love who they love, and not letting them make the choices for themselves. I wish I was there that night to stand with that young woman and her partner. And so I'd like to say something directly to everyone out there who is affected by these hateful views, every member of the trans community, every person who loves whoever they love, no matter the gender, and every woman trying to make a difficult choice on whether to have a child or not. I'm with you, and the members of my caucus are with you. When hate and intolerance surfaces, we will speak out against it. I would hope every member of this House will do the same. And so I hope you will all join me in supporting this motion to condemn hate, condemn discrimination, and condemn restricting a woman's right to choose.
Thank you, member.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Recognizing the member for Peace River South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's great to be back, and welcome to everyone back to this place of honour. I'm here to speak around something that was made very clear to me in the first sitting of this session in the spring. And that was where, honestly, I felt that I was admonished, and perhaps some would even say chastised, in partaking in what was described at that time by a senior member from the opposite side of the aisle as being political gamesmanship. And in this particular case, I believe that what we're facing here is a thinly veiled political trap, and I will call it for what it is. British Columbians expect this House to use its precious legislative time wisely, to debate ideas that make life better for families, workers, and communities across our province. Yet once again, we see the government choosing division over direction. Instead of focusing on fixing real, everyday challenges British Columbians face, we are spending valuable time on a motion designed to score political points. This motion does nothing to strengthen our economy, improve health care, make our streets safer. It is a distraction. It is a deliberate one, and British Columbians see right through it. The government has decided that political theatre is more important than real solutions. While they spend time condemning organizations to create headlines, emergency rooms across the province are closing their doors. I can't recall how many went down this weekend. It's of significant concern to everyone. Wait times now exceed regularly 12 hours. 142,000 people who sought emergency care in British Columbia last year left before ever seeing a doctor. That's not leadership. That's a crisis. The real emergency that British Columbians want to talk about are not motions designed to divide us further. Let's talk about our schools. This government promised, not once, but repeatedly, to eliminate portables within one term. Instead, we have children learning in stacked double-decker portables in places like Surrey. That's not progress. That's failure, wrapped in a spin. When parents see these images, they don't see a government focused on inclusion or equality. They see a government that's forgotten about classrooms, teachers, and families. On the issue of addiction and safety, this government's priorities are dangerously misplaced. They decided that flooding the streets with toxic drugs was somehow the compassionate thing to do. But what about compassion for those struggling to recover? Where were the supports? British Columbians want to see action that save lives and rebuild communities, not experiments that turn neighbourhoods into open drug zones. Very importantly, let's talk about the economy. That's where this government's record is undeniable. A $6 billion surplus when taking government has become a $14 billion deficit. Our province at the time had no operating debt. Now the government is on track to drive it up to $24 billion, creating a total debt approaching $208 billion with a B. Infrastructure projects are billions over budget and years behind schedule. The Premier tells us he's fighting for BC jobs, but then his government blocks Canadian shipyards from bidding on contracts, choosing instead to have ships built in China. Imagine that. We're told to buy BC, but this government buys Beijing. And while they boast about promoting BC projects overseas, a company here at home...
Can I just ask you to redirect towards the subject for the motion? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Instead of today's performative debate, we could be discussing Bill 214, the Firefighters Health Act, a bill that would make a real difference for those who run into danger.
Member, we've concluded the vote for Bill 214. So to the subject of the motion that's been moved by the member. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I have very little time left, I will close with a simple statement that, again, many in this House would recognize that I don't have as much political experience as many in this House do. This is, again, I will very clearly recognize on the record that I see this as a political trap. I don't see this as a valuable use of the precious, precious legislative time that we are here to do the work of the people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the member from Surrey Cloverdale.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. I'm going to have to disagree with the member from Peace River South, because in fact I cannot think of a better use of time in this chamber than to stand up for the rights of British Columbians. In April, the opposition, under the leadership of the member for Nechako Lakes, invited the Association for Reform Political Action, or ARPA, to speak in the Hall of Honour in this legislature. ARPA is a group that is rooted in religious convictions, and let me be clear, Canadians, including British Columbians, have every right to express their religious beliefs. Our charter protects that freedom, and it's a cornerstone of what makes our country strong. Faith can inspire compassion, community, and I deeply respect those who live by their principles peacefully. I also understand that many people have genuine concerns about what they see as an erosion of sex-based rights, things like women's spaces, sports, and privacy. Others worry about children being medically transitioned without enough safeguards, and these are valid questions. In a complex world, it's okay to want transparency. It's okay to want evidence-based policies and open dialogues to address them. We need those conversations to build understanding and find solutions that protect everyone. But what isn't okay is discrimination. Using those concerns as a veil to deny dignity, safety, or rights to British Columbians. ARPA doesn't just advocate their own views. They actively campaign against the fundamental rights of others. They oppose same-sex marriage, seek to restrict abortion access, and undermine the dignity of transgender individuals. When a political caucus invites such a group into the heart of our government, not as private citizens, but as influencers in a public forum, it sends a concerning message and elevates voices that aim to erode the equality and protections guaranteed under the law. In a democracy like ours, the Hall of Honour isn't a private clubhouse. It's a symbol of representation for every citizen. By hosting ARPA, my former colleagues weren't just tolerating difference, they were endorsing a worldview that discriminates, that tells other British Columbians that their rights are up for debate. That erodes trust in our institutions, fosters divisions, and betrays the oath that we take as elected officials to serve everyone, not just those who share a particular faith or ideology. As elected officials, we must uphold the balance to protect religious freedoms, fiercely guarding against any encroachment on others' rights. But every British Columbian, regardless of faith, orientation, sex, gender, or background, deserves respect and true representation. And that means rejecting invitations that platform harm. Because when we don't, we weaken the fabric of our society. I've seen the strength in my riding, the harmony at interfaith gatherings, the pride in our multicultural communities, the resilience of families navigating these challenging times together. Friends, we've overcome so much. Wildfires, floods, a pandemic, and we'll overcome this too. Let's commit to a British Columbia where religious rights thrive alongside equality for all, where no one's dignity is sacrificed for another's dogma. That is the province that we all deserve. Let's build it together. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Recognizing the House Leader of the third party.
Thank you. This morning I wish to speak strongly in support of the motion from the member for Burnaby East. Upholding human rights is not a distraction, as the member from Peace River South asserts. It is the foundation of our society, of our province. Upholding human rights is not a distraction. It is foundational. To start, I'd like to express my gratitude to the member opposite for raising this issue in the House. At a time when human rights are being eroded by short-sighted governments, it is as important as ever to stand up for the health and safety of our communities. I respect the right of all members of this House to have their own religious beliefs. I do not respect the right of any member to seek to enshrine their beliefs into law or to use them as a tool for spreading hate and disinformation. Gender-affirming care, safe abortions, and access to excellent health services save lives. Today, I join my colleagues in speaking out strongly against groups that are attempting to erode these essential forms of health care. If the past has taught us anything, it is that hatred and denial do not stop abortions or queerness. It only pushes them into the shadows. I want to be very clear with this House. Abortion is health care, and that all health care decisions, it is for a pregnant person in consultation with medical professions to make. That's where the decision gets made. It is most certainly not a decision that lobby groups nor members of this House should be anywhere near. Gender-affirming care is life-affirming care. It allows for transgender, two-spirit, and gender non-conforming people to live openly and authentically. Gender-affirming care has been found to improve mental health amongst trans and non-binary youth. When groups such as ARPA speak in opposition to human rights and basic health care, it can have immensely negative impacts on trans and non-binary youth and their families, and we can't have that happen. Effectively, it compounds the prejudice, the stigma, discrimination, and violence they already face. We must recognize the very real human harm caused by beliefs such as the ones perpetrated by ARPA that reinforce stigma and fuel discrimination. When an organization denies the humanity of others, it crosses a line and becomes a matter of public safety and public harm. A compassionate society cannot remain silent while harmful rhetoric seeks to erase the reality of others. These views are outdated, dangerous, and do not uplift or unite us. They only divide us, and we do not need division. We need unity. When hatred is normalized, we see a rise in suicide in trans and queer youth and bodily harm or death from seeking unsafe medical procedures. The human toll of hatred is devastating. In recent years, hatred against the LGBTQIA+ community has risen dramatically. Safe spaces are disappearing. in schools and in communities, and we cannot stand by and let our political spaces become one of them. Suggesting that the way a person lives their life or who they love is immoral is not free speech, it is hate speech. We cannot be in the business of giving space and therefore legitimacy to groups who perpetrate hate speech. People who work in this building, the British Columbians and tourists who come to see this space, people conducting meetings and business, all have the right to go about their day without encountering people espousing hate. Our work is to create the conditions where people are safe, free from discrimination and hatred, where people can fully participate in our society. We need to renew our commitment to fighting for inclusion and equity across our province and in every aspect of our society.
Member.
Thank you.
Recognizing the member from North Vancouver Seymour.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to a motion of profound importance to me. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that I continue to speak on the lands of the Coast Salish people, here in Victoria, the Lekwungen, known as the Songhees and the Esquimalt, and in North Vancouver, the Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish nations, from where I call home. I'm always grateful for their ongoing stewardship of the water, land, and world around us. Last spring, I was surprised to learn that a group of people who espoused a variety of beliefs that conflict with the rights of many members of our communities had come to the People's House to express their divisive, prejudicial, and to be quite frank, hateful opinions. They had a benign name, the Association for Reformed Political Action. However, their apparent goal was to influence government policy in a variety of ways, to encourage policy creation that was focused on diminishing the rights of women and members of our LGBTQS+ groups. Their materials advocate to defund abortion and availability of the abortion bill. They have a campaign to pass laws that protect children before birth and describe abortion as a grave human rights violation. In vitro fertilization was also a target, with this group wanting to have the process criminalized, with the following being published in a report: the practice of creating excess embryos, freezing embryos, destroying or discarding embryos, commodifying gametes, and intentionally severing children from their biological parents should be condemned in Canada. Parliament should enact a legislative scheme that bans these harmful activities and protects life from its very beginning. This is hurtful and hateful. Hurtful and hateful. I don't know if anybody knows of anybody that's done IVF and done the work and knows the results and loves those results, those children. Additionally, ARPA indicates that groups believe that couples with same-sex relationships and transgender identities deprive their children of the leadership, nurturing, and care that a fully male father and fully female mother provide. This belief is outlined in an article entitled, "How to Respond to Pride Month." Excuse me. Here we are in a country, province, and communities that overall profess to support human rights, recognize and embrace diversity, variety, and the right to choose. Choose who you are, who you love, and how you manage your body, amongst many, many other things. ARPA wants to restrict those choices to only the things that match their beliefs. Laws and legislations with ensuing policies and regulations are there to support people. In our government, we believe in lifting people up, strengthening everybody's ability to have a life of their choosing. Our government is not open to suggestions by those who advocate repression of specific groups of people. Shortly after the event, it was noted that a number of members of the opposition were also against the beliefs expressed by ARPA. The member from Surrey-Cloverdale, Surrey-White Rock, and Penticton-Summerland had the strength of conviction to speak out against hosting ARPA. The member from Surrey-Cloverdale was very clear by stating, "To see a group that, in my opinion, actively works against the rights of other British Columbians is not in line with what I want to see in the Hall of Honour. Whereas, in contrast, the opposition member from Chilliwack North was very supportive, saying what ARPA has done has given a voice to the ills of society that are so harmful to many. Many of their stances align with our common sense approach as the Conservative Party of British Columbia. She also said, among other things, "It's my honour and privilege to host ARPA." At least the members of our new fourth party and our other parties and our independents are very clear in where they stand, whether we all agree or not, whereas the opposition seems to be unsure of their stand on this event, as was noted earlier. To be very clear, these are not just opinions that are being tossed around for dinner table discussions. ARPA is comprised of people who truly want the government to criminalize a person's right to choose what happens with their body, the right to choose who they live with, and marry and raise a family with, things that have been fought for over decades and generations. Fairness, dignity, and equal rights for all, regardless of gender identity, sexual orientation, or personal health care choices.
Thank you, member.
Oh, I just want to say I believe and stand for it as our government. Thank you.
Recognizing the member for Peace River North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise today and I wanted to talk about this motion and the fact that I agree with the member of Peace River South and the fact that we have better things to talk about in this House, that there are certain things that are already protected and that's not actually being argued right now. What was invited to the Hall of Honour was a guest group that expressed an opinion. If I go and visit that, which I did, and see what they're about, am I now a terrorist? If I actually look at their information, am I now wrong to look at that information? It's the right to have freedom of speech. That's what this House is about. This isn't actually, their opinions aren't in this House right now. They're not actually in any of the bills. Right now in the North, I've got people dying because of the healthcare system. When we see the drug crisis, we see different organizations come in. You go and you see their viewpoint, whether or not you agree with them or disagree with them, you can leave. But it's about seeing the different perspectives in life and what different communities are about, what different organizations are about. And right now, this isn't about changing the current laws that we have. And I honestly feel like this is just another thing that is creating polarizations within our politics. And it's creating the ideological segregations that are just creating more issues. And I don't think that what is being brought forward is being challenged. I think that those rights are in place, and I respect those rights. But right now, I think that if we were to really focus on the main things of why we're here in this House, we've got those laid out in front of us. And that's why I'm here, is to bring forward the issues about my constituents. And that's why I'm here in this House, and I'll make this short and sweet, because that's what we should be focusing on. And right now, that incident, what was referred to, I honestly, it's either you go to it or you don't. If you don't like it, leave. There's a lot of different cultures and religions within this province. You can respect them, or you might not like them, but it doesn't have to come into this House. It's not affecting our rights right now. I'm getting sick and tired of the polarization and the segregation that's happening and the division. It's one of the reasons why I don't like party politics, is because that's what it's becoming too much of. And you need to remember where you come from and your constituents that you represent, what their issues are. This isn't one of them. Thank you.
Recognizing the member for Kootenay-Monashee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to support this motion condemning the intolerant views of the Association for Reformed Political Action, or ARPA. I stand for diversity and inclusion. I stand for freedom to love whom we choose. I stand for human rights. And I stand for Canada's long-established values of acceptance, dignity, and freedom for every Canadian. I take my responsibility as a member of this legislature very seriously. We have important work ahead to build a better British Columbia for the remainder of this term and for generations to come. For me, this is not some fluffy motion wasting our time. This motion goes to the very heart of that work. It is the foundation upon which all our efforts must rest. If we do not stand for love, diversity, and inclusion, if instead we allow hatred and division to take root, everything we strive to build together is doomed to collapse. I was raised Christian. I recognize the many positive contributions of Christianity that has bettered the fabric of our province. But I also know the fallibility of religious institutions of all kinds. And I know the sometimes appalling paths that they have taken. Let me be clear. I support Christians, I support Buddhists, I support Muslims, I support Hindus, I support Sikhs, whatever faith or belief system people choose. But I draw the line when religion is used as a shield for hatred. I will call out hatred every single time, and this is one of those times. ARPA has said, and I quote, as a Christian advocacy organization that adheres to the truths we believe are found in God's Word, it is not inconsistent then for us to state that we believe homosexuality is immoral. They also say, and I quote, ARPA believes homosexuality and transgenderism are disordered. Honourable Speaker, there is nothing disordered about being gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or queer. What is disordered is believing that some British Columbians are less worthy of dignity and respect because of who they are or who they love. That is not faith, that is prejudice. And prejudice, when cloaked in religious language, does not become righteous. It remains harmful, it remains hateful, and it has no place in the values of our province. This is why this motion is so important. It is not an attack on faith or on anyone's personal beliefs. It is a stand against hatred and discrimination masquerading as religion. By supporting this motion, the House affirms that all British Columbians, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or whom they love, are entitled to dignity, respect, and equality under our laws. We are saying clearly that prejudice has no place in our communities, no place in our schools, no place in our workplaces. This is a declaration that love, inclusion, and human rights must guide the work of this legislature, now and into the future. The work of this legislature cannot succeed if we turn a blind eye to hatred. It cannot succeed if we allow division to take root. Today, by supporting this motion, we choose love over fear. We choose inclusion over exclusion. We choose dignity over discrimination. We send a message to every British Columbian. Here in our province, you are valued. You are accepted. You are free to be yourself. Let us rise to this moment with courage and conviction. Let us affirm that hate has no home in British Columbia. I urge all members to support this motion. Stand up for the
Thank
values
you, member.
that make our province truly great. Thank you, Speaker.
Recognizing the House Leader of the Fourth Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to know if the member from Burnaby East considers the religious texts of British Columbians to be hateful and if they should be labelled as hate speech. Is the member proposing to label Muslims, Christians, Mormons, Orthodox Jewish British Columbians, and many more as intolerably hateful because of their personal religious beliefs? I certainly would not. In fact, what the member from Burnaby East is doing is trying to divide British Columbians that are perfectly happy coexisting with one another into baskets labeled as good and bad and hateful and tolerant. This is what real division looks like. Will the member interview all her constituents before meeting with them to ensure she only speaks with those who already share her own personal moral beliefs? Division and targeted smears do not become acceptable just because you use the word tolerance and inclusion. I believe all my constituents have the right to be represented in the legislature, and that is why I will be voting against this childish motion. Thank you.
Recognizing the member from Coquitlam, recognizing the member from Coquitlam-Yardville.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. My deep gratitude to my colleagues who have stood to show that British Columbians support equal treatment under the law for all people. I am certainly not going to specifically point to any one member, but I would say if you do not instinctively in your heart understand why it's so important for us to stand on this issue, perhaps you do not have a child whom this issue directly affects. And I would like to raise up my colleague from Burnaby East for the bright, burning flame that is her courage for bringing forward this motion. We have certainly seen in the last days that there are risks to speaking out on issues where we disagree and disagree passionately, and that there are people who are willing to use violence and intimidation to silence people who want to speak. And that's unacceptable. I know many of the members of this House would stand just as firmly against that as they have stood for people in British Columbia today. If I was there, I would hug you, but I'm not. And to us LGBTQIA plus British Columbians, I see you. We love you. You belong. And thank you also to all of the people of faith who have reached out to me over this last year, who have prayed so earnestly and communicated your views so full of heart and sincerity that you want peace and joy and success for all British Columbians, and you want equal treatment for them. My children and I often discuss the whys of the world. That is the incredible value of having 5 really dedicated little mini politicians in your kitchen. And I've been able to increase my understanding of Psychology 101 over this last year, because we always talk about the just world fallacy, the idea that it relates so much to the lack of compassion that we see for vulnerable people in our society. It's deep in us. It's in our genes, in the back of our heads, in the earliest part of us, to react so instinctively when we see people suffering. But there are issues that we cannot solve immediately. And for some people, there are problems that must be endured, and they cannot be quickly solved. And when that happens, humans naturally have a tendency to try and get ourselves out of that quandary, out of that tension between empathy and exhaustion by flipping and blaming the person who is the sufferer. And the narrative in our hearts transforms. If you are suffering, you must deserve it. And you see this logic happen over and over when we are forced to confront the painful condition of infertility. I want to warn you, if you're someone who has experienced infertility, you may not want to listen to this next little bit because you've already heard it before. I guarantee it. Callous statements that children are a gift, often a gift from God. And if you can't conceive, well, that's all part of the plan, and you should just accept it. Receiving medical treatment, well, that goes against the plan too. And here in this House, we've had members who welcomed a group who says that they're against many of the most powerful and effective treatments we have for infertility. They're against IVF. They want to disallow the use of donor gametes for assisted human reproduction. They refer to surrogacy as fracturing and reordering natural relationships, and that human procreation ought to take place within a committed heterosexual marriage. And those aren't just personal beliefs that they want to maintain. They're advocating to ban donor gametes by law. They want to prevent other British Columbians, other Canadians from having the right to practice medical health care and reproductive care as they see fit. This past summer, I was very privileged to be at the province's announcement that we were going to be funding IVF. And I want to emphasize that we want to make this province a better place for women and a more equitable place to live, not less. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Recognizing the Leader of the Fourth Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Last session, the member from Burnaby East, along with members of both the government and the official opposition, objected to the welcoming of a Christian organization inside the legislature. Many British Columbians from various religious faiths share the views of this organization. It's preposterous for these members to now propose a motion that condemns a significant portion of British Columbians simply because they don't share this member's radical opinions. Does the member truly think that only British Columbians who agree with her deserve to be represented in the legislature? What will be next? Will the Salvation Army be decried if invited to the House? Will she be saying that British Columbians are uninvited guests in their own province? In their own legislature? I stand up for every British Columbian, regardless of who they are or where they're from. Madam Speaker, if the member for Burnaby East truly believes she is an uninvited guest, well, then will you please ask her to leave? I will not be supporting this motion.
Seeing no further speakers, I'll invite the member for Burnaby East to close debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to take a moment to share how deeply grateful I am to the members on the opposite side who stood up and showed support, and many of my friends and colleagues over here and on the screen for standing up against homophobia, transphobia, and protecting a woman's right to choose. The opposition has said time and time again that they have the right to vote as they want, and I sincerely hope that today they will do just that. Standing up for people's rights and tackling the problems that people are facing aren't mutually exclusive. Every MLA should be able to do both. We can call out homophobia and protect choice at the same time while we tackle housing, affordability, and improvements to the healthcare system. Suggesting we can't do both is simply an excuse, and just so that they don't have to stand up for those rights. I denounce One BC, and I hope BC Conservative MLAs don't stand with them. Remember that each one of you have a trans, gay, lesbian, and other queer members of the community in your ridings. Each one of you have many women and people who can get pregnant in your riding. Are you going to advocate for all of them or only the select constituents that you choose? This is not a political trap. It is not political football. It is human rights. And we have to and we must defend every single day the progress we've made. Otherwise, we will go back. And we are seeing that happen in places like the States. I urge each and every one of you to please consider voting in support of this motion. We do have to condemn the people that show up here that have hateful views, that want to practice intolerance and lobby for policy changes to stop people from making decisions for themselves. That's the crux of the issue, nothing else. I love people equally. I don't stand for any discrimination of a particular group because of their views, and especially legislating that into policy. It's why the Canadian Charter of Rights changed in 2005, and human rights were enshrined into policy. That's the reason. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we will go to the vote. And you've heard the question. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. The motion is carried. And division has been called. So pursuant to Standing Order 25, the division is deferred until 6 p.m. today.